What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Duel the Day podcast. Today we have an awesome guest episode for you where we sat down and talked with Beate Chelette. Man, I really hope I am saying her name correctly at this point. Anyway, she is the growth architect and founder of the Women's Code and provides visionaries and leaders with proven strategies, blueprints, and growth maps that provide clear steps to improve business systems, strengthen leadership skills and teams, so that our clients and audiences can maximize profits and scale their impact. She's known as a straight shooter in her ability to inspire, empower, and overcome adversity. Her super skill is working with unique personalities and big thinkers and building executable systems. As a first-generation immigrant, she found herself $135,000 in debt as a single parent, but she bootstrapped her passion for photography into a global business that licensed content into 79 countries. She exited in a multi-million-dollar deal when she sold the company to Bill Gates. She's the podcast host of the Business Growth Architect Show and listed amongst the top 100 global thought leaders by PeopleHum and one of the 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs by HuffPost. We had a really fun time sitting down with Beate and talking. One of the biggest things that we talked about that I loved listening to her thoughts on was how to turn our passions into profits, right? We all have things that we love to do and we'd love to spend time with, but yet when they don't yield us money, sometimes it feels like a time waster to us. But through her perspectives and our conversation with her, we were able to understand a little bit more on how to monetize those things, how to dive in and go all in on some things that we love doing. So we hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as we did. Look forward to what you guys have to hear. And with all that said, enjoy the show.
At the end of the day, it's the people, it's the relationships, it's the connections, it's the conversations, it's the warmth, the emotional connection you have to other people that really makes it worthwhile.
As you mentioned when we did our introductory call, you had some businesses that you've sold and you're currently doing like coaching and different things like that. But could you expand on kind of that journey of starting those businesses to selling them and kind of where you see yourself now and in the future?
Yeah, of course. So when you originally start a business, you are driven by an idea or passion, or you fall into it and then you kind of just go with it. And then you realize somewhat quickly that you have to have systems and processes because you need to have income. And then you realize that, oh, there's this thing, the S word, sales, and you have to get in, have to get in front of people. You have to pick up the phone. You have to sell yourself. And then you freak out because you think that it would be nice if somebody else could sell me. And it would be great if I could not have to sell, if I could just do what mom and dad told me, just do good work and the teacher will recognize your genius and then you're going to get an A. Unfortunately, in real life, it's nothing like that. So I think the whole school system is just completely faulty set up because you go out and you say, if I do a good job, somebody's going to see and someone's going to give me an A. And everybody goes like, well, why would I give you the job? He's like, hey, whoa. I'm not prepared for this question whatsoever. And that's when I think the real work in business starts. And so when I started in business, I started originally out in a creative world. I'm a trained photographer and I loved it because naively as I thought, that would mean that I could just do really good work and then people would see it and then they give me a lot of money for it. But interestingly enough, I figured out very quickly that I was better at the business side of things. And so I very quickly moved over to the business side of photography, becoming a photo editor at Elle magazine. And Then when I immigrated into the United States, became a photographer representative and a still photography producer, which means that people from all over the world came to Los Angeles, and I produced their still photography shots for like Wrangler, Mercedes-Benz, and uh, BMW, some really, really great clients. And then I go into this decade of bad luck where all this stuff that happens to other people, fires, floods, riots, earthquakes, September 11th, and all these things that you read about in the paper all had a direct impact on me. So I lost $500,000 in September 11th. My entire production business was wiped out in literally 24 hours with the towers. So went my entire production business, because nobody in their own right mind would go on a plane and fly to Los Angeles after, planes just been hijacked and
Yeah.
all these people lost their lives. And then I had an employee who had this great idea for her own business, which was my business without me, and got too close to a key vendor. And so I lost $500,000 due to, the misconduct, and I sued them. And next thing I'm involved in this massive lawsuit. And so what happened is that I'm in this nutcase survival fight where you go, all right, dear God, what else do you have? Because it just kept coming.
Yeah,
It
that
just
sounds
kept
like it.
coming. And then I went to Germany and my dad had a stroke. Well, that answer was that question was answered pretty quickly. What else? And then my dad died. In 6 weeks, he had pancreatic cancer. And as I'm at the funeral, my phone rings and it's my office in Los Angeles. Now we've been served a notice. I'm losing the house, which I didn't own, but I had an agreement with the previous landlord that I was going to be able to run a home office. This was way before home offices were completely permitted under certain circumstances. And so he had filed to evict me. So I'm standing there. I'm going, I'm $135,000 in debt. I had this idea to build this business, which I can't build fast enough because I don't have the money. I lost my best friend. Really, I'm done. I mean, this is it. It's game over. And I surrendered. And I said, I fell to my knees. I raised my fist and I yelled at God. And I said, if you have a plan, this would be a really excellent time to fill me in at this moment. And I let it go. And I got back not too long after. I get a letter from the White House. And this letter from the White House was, supposedly like the president sends his best wishes. Of course, the president of the United States never saw this letter that I wrote. But what it did do, it put me in touch with the Small Business Administration, the second in command, because he was also getting a letter from the White House and he wanted to know which nutcase would write a letter to the president of the United States instead of picking up the phone and calling him directly, which never even occurred to me that I could do that.
I didn't know you could do that.
I didn't know I could do that. And so so I walk into this office and he says, I had to see this person in person. Like, why did you pick up the phone? I said, I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know you existed. And they helped me to find a bank that took the $135,000, restructured into a 10-year fixed, freed up my line of credit. Smart as I am, I immediately accumulate a little bit more debt. And then I went to break even in 3 months. And I was the world leader in my category 18 months later. And that's when a Bill Gates company comes and says, hey, Beate, can you tell us how you do it? And I said, no. Like any decent woman, you want what I have to pay for it.
Yep.
Right? And then they said, oh, okay. How much do you want? I said, I want a couple million. And then they said, okay. And that's how I ended up selling my business for millions of dollars, 18 months after the worst moment of my life to Bill Gates.
Wow. And I imagine I noticed you wrote a book. Is that story in your book in detail?
Yeah. The book, Happy Woman, Happy World, Your Foolproof Fix on How to Get from Overwhelmed to Awesome. I wrote this book after I sold the business. I was asked to become the senior director of global entertainment for this particular company that has purchased me. And I was just shocked on how in corporate America, how people treat each other and how women are treated, and I'm literally, I was shocked. It's like, this actually still happens. And then I wrote a book, and I wanted to make sure that women that want to be taken seriously need to understand that we have to have a code amongst ourselves. Women have to have a code amongst ourselves. And we, the bigger battle is out there on how do we address women leadership? How do we address male leadership? And understanding the differences without having all this friction, because women should not lead like men and men should not lead like women. But men should understand how women lead and women should understand how men lead, because we each bring a vital piece to the equation. And so I wrote this book, the stories in there, a couple concepts I've developed in the process. But yeah, that's the story in a nutshell.
That is a very powerful story. I'm sure all of your readers feel the same way, because I'm sure a lot of us have gone through those, down in the dumps moments where we feel like the world is against us and we don't know what to do. And in those moments, people like yourself keep fighting, keep figuring out a way to make things work. And then fast forward a year or two later, your life's totally different. That's a very powerful message. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
I think I want to add something to this, because I know that a lot of people are going through this right now, that there is so much uncertainty. And if we look at what's happened in the post-COVID environment and what we had heard, the promises that were made, the promises that were not kept, how we had to invent a whole set of rules, and how do we act during a pandemic? How do we act when we are in a lockdown? How do we act when we are mentally being pushed to the brink because we cannot do the things that we want to do, don't see the people that we want to see, can't help the people we want to help, are completely dependent on a government or an employer and hoping to not get laid off at the most inopportune moment? I think people are really struggling mentally right now with coming to terms with what just happened, and nobody really talks about it. I see this everywhere, that where people say I have this unspecific anxiety over something and I don't know what it is or where it's coming from, but I'm anxious. I'm like, well, I can tell you why you're anxious, because everything that you had has been basically course corrected, what, 6 times now in the last 3 years. So every time you think you got it figured out, then there's another massive shift, and then you change it again, and then it's another change and another change and another change. And I think that that's one thing we have to be cognizant about as we talk to your listeners right now, is like, it's okay to not be okay sometimes. And it's okay to get to a point where you remember that this is also about trust and surrender, that the universe or this world is a friendly place. And that if something is not working and falling apart, that maybe it's doing so because it's not meant to be yours. Maybe it's too difficult. Maybe it's too dreadful. Maybe it's too hard. Maybe if you're in a difficult situation right now, you're being told to let go and surrender of this because something else and better is coming. But the way I describe it is, if you have a really crappy car, let's say you have a very old Toyota stick shift car in front of your house, and you are buying the new car, whatever, the Toyota, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Tesla, whatever, that Dodge truck, whatever that is for you. There's a moment where you have to take the Toyota and drive it out of that spot for that new car to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this moment of there's nothing there because the old car has to go for the new one to come in. And I think this is what people struggle with, because it's that uncertainty in between the moments.
That's a great analogy that you made me think of, the graph that kind of shows people's expectations for what they think life should be like, and it's a graph just with a straight line going up, right? But then the actual reality is that it's up and down. And the message to me with those images is, it's a lot of things in life are all about consistency. And to what you're saying, in those moments where you find yourself anxious about something or unsure, that changing is okay. You can change your mind. If you're not fit for something or something isn't going your way, then that may be the universe telling you that something else is around the corner, something else is better for you, something along those lines. So I love that analogy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I try to keep it always simple because I think a lot of these concepts are, especially by the internet marketers, made so unbelievably complicated. It's really not very complicated. And mindset and spirituality or believe in God or something, everything is ruled by a source. I mean, black only can exist because white exists. I mean, you wouldn't know that it's white unless there was black. And then let's not even talk about gray here. So 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 science and universal laws of how the world operates really are all going hand in hand. And we like to forget that. We like to think that we were put here to run the show. We're not here to run the show. The show is run by someone else or by something else or by some other energy. We're here to learn how to manifest on a planet where you can actually manifest destiny and where you can manifest your own fortune because you have free will. And if you focus on that and you say, what I focus on expands, and you say, well, I'm worried about not having enough money to pay my bills, then you're focusing on not having enough money to pay your bills. And then that's what's expanding. So this is really the challenge in the prosperity mindset, is to say, what do I need to focus on for that to expand? And I was like, well, I paid a bill. That's amazing. That's felt really good. Gee, paying bills is incredible. I have money to pay this bill. I'm going to have lots of money. I'm on my way to have more money to pay all my bills. Now you're focusing on that. And that, I think, is one of the challenges that people are in right now, because we've been bombarded with all this negativity, especially during election cycles and during media now being mostly written by AI. I mean, the garbage that is being published right now is just atrocious.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's
negative stuff out there.
yeah, the whole AI deal is a is a rabbit hole we can go down eventually here. I did want to backtrack just a little bit to you know, in the early parts of the story of your story that you outlined. Recently a message that's kind of flooded my brain recently is just the thought of you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now. And I'm curious if in that time where you were seemingly losing everything, over $100,000 in debt, what what was that like? How did you work through that? Because I mean, you went briefly through, like, you did this, sat down, prayed to God, talked to God for a minute, which is a great message in itself, and then seemingly everything kind of fell into place. But
Oh, I
what
yelled at him.
was
I definitely yelled. That was not, it was not, it was a nice conversation. I'm like, WTF here, okay?
it's funny. I think yelling is still a great way to communicate, because it's just the talking, using the words alone is more than enough. But yeah, so like what was kind of that day to day like in your mind, right? I think a lot of times you get to that rock bottom or that breaking point, and that's where a lot of people quit, or they try to get some momentum, and they start feeling good for a few days, they start making some good progress, and then the bottom drops out from it again. What was that period of your life like, and how did you really grasp and propel through that?
It really is a lot about discipline, where you have to think about, how do I make it through this? So if I have bills to pay, I can really only worry about the bills that I need to pay twice a week, twice a month, because I cannot sit here and worry about this for 30, whatever, 28, 29, 30, or 31 days. I can worry about this only twice. because I already know what my financial situation is. So I'm going to think about it when these bills are due. And then you have to take it and put it out of your head and put it aside, because otherwise you make yourself crazy and you are occupying your mind with stuff you have that puts you now in an even worse downward spiral. It was that. The second thing, it was that I said, I'm a good person. I don't lie. I don't cheat. I don't steal. There's just no way in the world the joke can be on me. I mean, it's just not possible. It literally is impossible. Like, I cannot believe at the end of the day, God, spirit, universe, whatever you believe in, would stand there and go, nah, 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 just kidding. I mean, it was unfathomable for me that after all of this, after all I've been through as a single parent immigrant, fighting hard, and what the story I told is not even, it's not even a third of everything. There was a lot more than that, but I couldn't believe that at the end of it, I was the loser. And that is what I survived on. And let's not talk about this being so far gone. I'm going through the same thing again. I just went through a spiritual retreat. I went on an ayahuasca journey, and I came with a huge list of intentions and things that I had wanted. And I got answers on everything but my business. And ever since I'm coming back, it has been just Armageddon. Like, I don't even know what the heck is going on here. And I'm realizing that I had gone with an intention, and it's probably being answered, but I don't like the way it's being answered because it is expensive. I have to tap into equity. The sales are in the toilet. My sales guy, I don't even know what the heck is going on there, but clearly something is falling apart and I don't like it. But I was just there and I got everything else but this. So, you know where I'm going with this? So am I going to say now, I got everything but this, so they were wrong in 85%, and in 15% or 25%, they're wrong? Or am I going to say, well, they've been right with 100%? I'm just not seeing these 25 or 15%. Yeah. So, I mean, if you have any insights here, I'd love to hear it because I'm in the middle of it.
Oh, I don't think anyone has insights onto the meanings of ayahuasca journeys. That is, that's beyond my realm of expertise. I did want to ask though, how does the definition or your definition of success play into how you're seeing things happen around you?
My definition of success is impact driven. So in the compensation model for the impact that I help other people make, it is a fine line to walk between what we know makes impact. A lot of pro bono nonprofit work makes impact, of which I do plenty. But then there has to be a balance on you being compensated. But the definition of success is so individual that I think that the first step for everybody is to sit down and say, what is my definition of success? Is your definition of success that when your child comes and says, hey, daddy, I need a car, that you'll go, great, the moment has come, and you'll, go to the car dealership and you'll buy a car for your child? Is that your definition of success? Is your definition of success to say, oh, great, go get a job, I'll help you to find one? Is your definition of success to say, I want to live in a particular part of the country and my family is the most important thing? Or is adventure your definition of success, where you are constantly traveling? So people's definition of success are often manipulated again by media or by what's out there to be the toys, the cars, the big house, the whatever 4 people hot tub, resorts and champagne and stuff like that. I'm a little further out in my life, so I've had plenty of champagne and I've been in plenty of nice hot tubs and resorts and places like that. At the end of the day, I will tell you that stuff is wonderful and I love flying business, but at the end of the day, it's the people, it's the relationships, it's the connections, it's the conversations, it's the warmth, the emotional connection you have to other people that really makes it worthwhile. Being broke is not fun, so I certainly do not recommend that. I think the bohemian lifestyle is completely overrated, only looks good on TV or in a musical. In real life, not so much. So you got to figure out how to get the money out of the way and make the money somewhere between your 30s and 45. That's the sweet spot. You got to get the money out of the way, and you're going to work your butt off to get there. Because afterward, it gets a lot more difficult. When you're 50 and you try to figure out what the definition of success is, you're already behind the 8 ball. That's mostly driven by society. Not to say that it's impossible. It is definitely possible, but it is more difficult. The sweet spot to make money is 30 to 45. So get on with it.
Yeah, that's super important to mention that everything is individualized, and I'm right there with you. Like if there was a way for us to live life without money or without having to worry about money so much, like I'd be all for that. But unfortunately, it's a pretty big part of life. And I think the way Tony Robbins talks about money is pretty good. Money just gives you more options. It's a tool to give you more options. Then I think the other thing he mentions is that a bad person with more money will still be bad, and a good person with money will still be good. Something along those lines.
I'm
Just
100%.
just kind of showcases the traits that you already have. But I ask about success and how you see it, because if lots of things are happening to anyone in business or anyone trying to start their own thing, a lot of things are happening to those people that they don't understand or that aren't in their roadmap of where they think their business should be going. Maybe their definition of success or their vision of success just doesn't line up with what's actually happening in their life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes like shifting that or saying, hey, I may not be making the money that I want, but I am making the connections that I want. I am building the foundation for something to be great here in the next year or two. I think those are good things to consider as well in business.
Yeah. I just heard something really good. I had somebody that I interviewed yesterday for my own podcast, a business growth architect show, and he said to me that there's a great quote that says, "In 5 years, the difference between you remaining where you are and not is the people you met and the books you read."
Yep. I would agree with that. That's a good one.
Yeah, because if you go in a different network of people, or you're out meeting people and having ideas and conversations, then you're creating opportunities. Opportunities are not found on Instagram. I mean, maybe they are, but not at that level. In a good conversation with somebody who's smart, sitting over a coffee somewhere. And the books that you read are the ideas that you get. Because shockingly, I'm always amazed. It's like when you go to some of these really super smart people like Tony Robbins, like you were to have Tony Robbins as a coach, like one-on-one, you'd spend what, like $100,000 a day or something insane
Yep.
like that. But he's put everything he teaches in a book for like $15.
Just got to read.
Ah,
Yeah, but have you seen the size of that book?
oh yeah. I mean, and the font's like what, -6?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long book. Hmm.
But you're exactly right. The reading thing is and the funny thing is just you see so many things now on how to read and digest books faster, right? There's a bunch of apps now, like I think Headway is one of them, where it gives you like the 15-minute bullet point where you can scroll through that and get book information instead of scrolling through Instagram or X or Twitter, whatever it's actually called right now. I don't know. Um, and there's a lot of those. You can listen to books now. Obviously, that's been around for a while, but I think there's just something to be said about having a physical copy of paper in your hand that you spent money on, that you need to invest in yourself and to read that. And I know very few people that actually have a regular reading habit, which is probably a problem for me because I need to get around some better people that read regularly. But
Book club,
what
book
are
club,
some of
book club. Start a book club.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
start a book club with people that are like you. I mean, we can put it out right now. So if you're interested in joining a book club led by Tyler and Nicholas, by all means, send them a DM, reach out to them, and it's a business book club, and you'll get to read a business book a month. Done.
There it
Yep,
is. It's
I
official,
like that.
everybody. Book club.
Sign up now.
Sign up right now. It's free.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It is. But what are some, we're talking about books, but what are some of the biggest or most impactful books that you've read? I know it might be a really hard question to answer since there's probably a lot on that list, but if there was a
It's a lot
few,
behind her.
yeah, if there was a few that kind of reaching into multiple areas of life, so not just business books, not just spiritual books, but what would be like your top couple recommendations for people to go out and really invest their time into and digesting?
Yeah, I mean, one of the books that I recommend everybody's The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And The Compound Effect is just so simple. It says you eat a Snickers bar every day, then you're going to gain weight. And if you not eat the Snickers bar and you cut out your glass of wine every night, you're going to lose weight. It's The Compound Effect. I think it's a great book with illustrations. It's easy to read. It's easy to understand. It's all about discipline, consistency, and what happens. So I love that book. The other book that I'm reading right now is The Challenger Sale, where you talk about challenging your clients' opinions as you are making the sale, so that you get away from the pitch, but that you crawl into their heads and say, well, when you say that, what do you really mean by that? Or have you thought about it? And the concepts are taken around. Most clients or most people don't know what the actual problem is. They have an assumption of that the problem that they're recognizing is the actual problem, which it never is, because otherwise it would have solved it. But the problem that they're, like when somebody says, I need to find more clients, yes, that's what they're seeing, but that's not the problem. It's probably the messaging and 15 other things that are leading to them not having enough clients or a sales process or things like that. So I like the Challenger Sale. The other thing, Good to Great is kind of a smart book to read from the perspective of just understanding like some of these leadership principles that are relatively easily laid out for you to get that. What else do I have here that I read? Yeah. Oh, the other book I read is like The Non-Obvious Company, that is about how to be more mission driven. Anything Simon Sinek, of course, people are raving about the new book. I haven't read it yet. Is well thought out. I mean, concepts that have been around forever. The Power of Positive Thinking, the original Norman Vincent Peale is a classic. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, you should read this once a year and then follow it. The Working with the Law by, I think the name is Gary Halliwell. It's literally the original book on working with the law, with the laws of attraction, the universal law of polarity, and all these things. That's just a couple that I've been, that I keep relatively close to myself. Anything Tony Robbins is good because, he's pretty much the inventor for the most part of this massive category of self-improvement.
Mm.
And then everybody who pretty much leaned on everybody else's stuff. It's the same stuff regurgitated 15 times all over again. So find somebody that you like and that you believe in and feel is current and relevant, and then go there and read and consume that.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for that, humoring me with that list. The funny thing with the you mentioning the compound effect first, and since we just started this book club, I actually have 10 copies of that on my shelf. So first 10 people that want in get the free first book. So
there you go.
How about that?
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. For the first 10 members of this brand new book club.
Boom.
Compound effect. Yeah, and I loved your comment about reading all of these different types of books that kind of focus on the same genre, just because I've read a decent amount of the books that you just mentioned. I've read a lot of similar books, and sometimes you hear something said a certain way or
Yes.
written a certain way, and you're like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense now. But you've already read the same thing in like 4 other books, but those other books just didn't say it in that exact way that made your brain click. So even if some of those topics seem repetitive, I think that's a great point to make, that sometimes we need to reread some of the books that we've already read or continue reading books in the same genre to see if it sparks something new. I mean, you never know.
Yes, and especially some of the books that you read that are older, that have this language that might be a little bit difficult to understand. Some of the Napoleon Hill language feels a little outdated, so sometimes people have difficulties with that. So if you read other versions where it refers to it, it might help you more to relate to the content.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, and too, though, going along with what you're saying, Nico, about just you might pick up something new when you reread something. You're also a different person when you read the book a second time, and your eyes might be a little bit more vigilant, or your brain might be open a little bit more to something that you just read over and was like, oh, that's not really important to me. And then 2 years later, you're like, oh my gosh, how did I miss this last time?
I did that. Yeah, I did that. I went in like a 90-day mindset thing, and I paid a lot of money for it. And then I was listening to it again, and it was like, I've never heard it before.
That's so weird how that works. That to me reminds me of synchronicity, just the universe happening at the right time, or certain things happening at certain times. Have you heard that term before? Or do you think synchronicity has a role in when we learn things from books sometimes?
I do. I think that, they always say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it really is like that. That is synchronicity, is when you're ready for it, you finally able to hear it. I mean, how many times have you tried to tell your mom or your dad or your uncle or your brother or your sister? It's like, man, come on. And crickets.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day they go out on their own and they say, oh, guess what? And you say, I told you this like 16 times. I have a buzzing in here. Is it me? Are you hearing this, or is the audio clear?
I'm not hearing anything from you.
No, you're good.
Okay, good, because there's some going on. I think that's the guys upstairs. They're playing guitar.
Okay. Well, we can't hear them.
Hold on one second.
Hopefully it's good.
It's
miserable. They keep doing this. Let me just switch here over to my. It's definitely somebody playing the guitar. Audio. So let me switch this over to. Because I have a thing called Crisp, and Crisp takes out all the background noise. So just to be on the safe side, I had I had construction in my house with literally a sledgehammer 10 feet away from taking the bathroom down. I was doing podcasts and nobody heard a thing.
What? Okay.
Wow.
Might need to get that app or that service.
Yeah, especially if you have kids, small kids,
I was
and
about to ask.
and lawnmowers, and there's like, people are running around, you hear nothing. It's KRISP, crisp. And all
Crisp.
it is, it's like an extension. And so now I switched in Zoom from my Yeti over to crisp, and it still goes through Yeti, but now it takes out everything.
All right. Well, I just wrote that down.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, the two small children have interrupted a few shows in the past. No, that's awesome. One thing I had written down, not to like totally shift gears or anything, but in looking at your website and stuff, and particularly like the blog section, I noticed a lot of topics on turning your passion into profits. I think that could be an interesting thing to talk about a little bit, because I think nowadays so many people just have things that they love to do and they would love to do it more, but their time is just sucked in all sorts of different directions, and they don't pursue the things that they want to or that they enjoy doing because of the demands of paying bills, or they don't think that they can make any money off of what it is that they love doing or whatever their particular skill set is. How do you go about getting somebody to realize that they can do that potentially? I mean, maybe their passion or skill is unmonetizable, if that's a word. And also just how to, I guess I don't want to get to scaling it yet, but letting people know that they can pursue this passion, that they should, because that's what's going to fulfill them. That's what's going to bring them happiness, and not just suck their life away doing things that they hate doing all the time. What is your kind of roadmap for that?
Oh my God, I'm so glad that you said that. And I promise this is not seated, but it certainly sounds like it. I literally just did a quiz called What's Your Talent Worth? So all you do is you go to what'syourtalentworth.com, and I came up with a mathematical formula where we can calculate on what your skill is worth. Because that question that you just asked is like, is there any money in this? Well, let me tell you if there is. So go to What's Your Talent Worth. It takes you 2 minutes, takes you 5 minutes to get the results, because it has to be sent somewhere to be actually calculated. And then you get the results, and follow the instructions properly. And when you get that, it'll give you a number. And that number is probably higher than the number that you're making right now. And if the number that you're not making is higher than what you're making right now, you're a little bit in a predicament right now, because then you need to think about why is that? And then the answer to that is you are not living up to your potential. And then you're going to want to argue with me, and you're going to say, well, but the good job's good, but I'm just checking out if maybe there's something there. Well, that's the point. The whole point of this is to say, if there's a gap between the number that you're making and the number that you could be making based up on everything I know in the market, right? Could the number be off by $50,000? Sure, it could be, but it's sort of within the vicinity. And I've been doing this a long time to have an understanding what you're earning, what an earning potential actually is in this market. And then you need to sit down and you say, what does that mean for you? I'm not here to tell you what that means. You're here to determine what that means for you. So if you look at this number and you say, I'm making $75,000, this number says I should make, or I could make $500,000, then that should be something you need to think about and say, well, if I were to go out in the free market, if I were to set up a business, if I were to do all these things, I could potentially make up to $500,000. Well, that of course means you're going to have to have an office, you have to have equipment, you have to have a desk, you have to buy stuff, you have to invest money, you have to pay for things. But is this the time for you to turn your passion into profits? I find that there is a enormous number right now in the market of people that are looking for certifications, of people that want to be out on their own, people that want to own something. But it all starts with, is there earning potential? That's why we did the quiz. And then now with that in hand, is the pain of you staying where you are greater than the fear of change? And if it is, you're most likely ready to do something. And if it isn't, then you're going to stay where you are. And then you're always going to wonder why other people are so terrible, because you yourself haven't made the change. So that's why we did the quiz, to make people maybe a little bit uncomfortable or hopeful, and say, and we've it's relatively new, so we've been still testing the feedback on it. And people have said, when I saw that number, I sat up straight. That got my attention. And that's what I want. I want you to think about it. Is it your time to turn your talent into a business? And then, we have a program that's called Turn Your Talent into a Business, which is why we did the quiz, so that people could see, I have earning potential. And if they have earning potential and they see that, if the number is $500,000, and then we have a $3,000 program for you for 12 weeks that I personally run, to teach you how to do this. I've done this thousands of times. You determine whether or not that's a good investment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And yes, that was not seated. I did see the actual quiz on the bottom of your website there. So I'm glad you brought that up. How do I want to phrase this? What do you think is one of the biggest roadblocks for people when it comes to not pursuing what you were just talking about? Is it more of they're just scared to make a change, they don't think that they can do it, or is it that they don't think they deserve that bigger number? Their self-worth is a lot lower. And the only reason I bring that up is I did see Instagram has its moments where there's actually worthwhile things to look at. And it was this story about a father sending his daughter out to buy some bottles of water. And he said, go to the grocery store down the road, go to the airport, go up to an airport, buy a bottle of water, go to this restaurant and buy a bottle of water. And she comes back, and at the grocery store it was 99 cents. At the airport it was $7.99. At the other place it was $10 or something. And the message that he says to her is, it's the same bottle of water, it's just worth something different in a different place. So make sure you're in the right place so that your worth is seen. And I just wonder if a lot of people can't get past that pain of starting because that they're not in the right place in their own mind or in their current work, family, life thing, to where their self-worth is low.
Yeah, the thing with self-worth, if we only knew, right, on how to wake up in the morning, look at the mirror and go, damn, wow, oh gosh, you're gorgeous and intelligent and amazing. Wonder what the day is going to bring to you that's even better than what you're already having. I had a girlfriend that used to do that. Every mirror she went by, she would stop and she'd go like, wow, gosh, I'm gorgeous.
It's a good practice.
Yeah, and so when I was in Germany, I did that with my sister. She has a mirror down in the entrance hall. So every time I went by with her, I took her and we stood in front of the mirror. I said, "Wow, God, how do other people stand it? How fabulous we are!"
That's great.
So, can you do something like that and actually believe it? Can you go in a room and say, what I know has value? Or are you going to look at all the things that you don't know and say, well, between these 16 things, I still don't know X. I always compare this to how we are trained, right? I mean, let's go back to where this originates. It's originating in our educational system. So you can have an A in math and an A in science, and you suck at sports, and you suck at writing, and you suck at art. And then the teacher's going to go, and there's going to be a parent-teacher conference. And even though you're a genius in certain areas, you're being told that you must be good at things that you A, hate, B, you're not good at, or the other way around. Maybe you're good at the creative stuff and you are not good at math. But society tells us that you're only good if you're mediocre at everything. And if you're excellent at everything, then you're valuable. So now we go out in a job and we rock in the pitch deck. I mean, you're responsible for bringing in like millions of dollars because your pitch decks and the way you run is amazing. And then you go in the performance review with your boss, and the boss says, you know what, Ty? Your Excel pivot tables suck. And you go, dude, what? My Excel pivot tables? Well, as you know, when you were hired, we told you that we work a lot in Excel. That's how we run the numbers, and your pivot tables are just completely subpar. And then you walk out demoralized because you just responsible for a $25 million sale, and they're terrorizing you on something as stupid as Excel pivot tables. What they should be doing is they say, hey, I can see that your pivot tables are kind of like, yeah. Is there anybody on your team that you can team up and partner with to take over that part? And they say, yeah, of course, Susie does that. Susie's a freaking genius. She can help me. So this thinking of that there's always something you don't know is so embedded in our DNA that when we go out, we immediately expect that somebody's going to expose our equivalent of the Excel pivot tables. And we're terrified of that instead of having this attitude of saying, Excel pivot tables, are you kidding me? Not a chance in hell. That's not what my skill is. My skill is in closing.
A great way to put it.
That's where it's at, is your inability to own what you're good at. But you need to know what you're good at, because what you're good at, you think, well, what you're good at is worthless because you're good at it naturally. You think the worth is only in the things that you're not good at that you had to painstakingly learn. What if that's not true? What if what you're naturally good at outweighs what you're painstakingly had to learn by a far margin because it's natural, it's an innate skill?
It's a great question. I think there's also a part of that with just accepting that we don't know everything, accepting that we may need to go and get help at certain times. And going back to like what we tell ourselves in the messaging too, I think being thankful and grateful is a big part of that, but recognizing that like everyone has faults, everyone is imperfect. And just because we may not be good at pivot tables doesn't mean that we're terrible people, right? So just being able to weigh those things, and be like, okay.
That's actually a blog article right there. It's like, just because you're bad at Excel pivot tables doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Yeah.
I think everybody would get that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to me, there's a lot of balance involved. I think very few people, or I guess the people that seem to have all of the traits that we want are those in social media or those running humongous companies. But even those people have faults. Maybe they're bad at pivot tables. Maybe they're bad at sales or whatever the case may be. And I think part of this whole dynamic is every person realizing what they're good at, to what you're saying, realizing what they're not good at so they can ask for help. But then also understanding that the people that we look up to in the world, the people that we idolize, the authors of these books that we've mentioned, the owners of these companies, every single person has issues or things that they're not good at too. And I think that to me makes everything seem like levels the playing field a little bit. Mentally, I feel like people think that Bezos and all these people making billions of dollars are in a different stratosphere when in reality they're humans. We're all humans. They're going to have, imperfections.
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, at this genius level, when you are in the 0.1% of the population, like an Elon Musk, like a Bill Gates, or a Bezos, when you really look at them, or a LeBron, or Magic Johnson. When people are this dedicated to being the very best in one particular category, it comes at a huge price. That is the one thing that they decided to be the best in the world at. That means that one thing is ruling everything else. And then look at Elon Musk's ability to communicate, which is what, a negative 400? I mean, every time the man opens his mouth, it's a disaster. Look at Bill Gates' track record with relationships. Look at, look at Bezos and culture. I mean, it's, Amazon is built upon using algorithms to figure out what sells, and then cutting out the middleman and going directly to the manufacturer and putting an Amazon label on it, and taking out people, and regulating how much money people can make on their platform. I mean, it's a monster. It's a shark.
Mhm.
So, but it is the number one platform in the world. And it's one man who built it and envisioned it. So it has to come at an expense somewhere else. Don't think that Jeff Bezos is going to be a great chef, or that he knows how to build little birdhouses with his children, or or maybe fix the garden hose, or clean the pool, or do any of that stuff. That, and I'm making assumptions here, maybe he's excellent at all of these things, but he doesn't have the time to do these things because he's a different level. So this also comes with the recognition that the people that we commonly admire, I mean, I think Elon Musk is a jerk. I mean, he comes across as a jerk. He sounds like a jerk. If I look at, formerly Twitter, now X, my God, what happened to this place? It's like a troll farm. So it comes with serious consequences depending on what decision you make. So you can be a well-rounded people and good at many different things, which is a balanced person, and you can live very happy and you can make a lot of money. If you want to make that kind of money, that only happens if you have a singular focus in life. And then everything else is a side note. And when you really look at what these people have jeopardized, it does come at a pretty big ticket price. But you have the fame and the money, and you're an innovator in that level. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, or if there even was a question, but I believe that there's always a choice here. There's always a choice. It's always a choice. When I was a photo editor and we did a story on Olympians, and I was, as a photo editor, we ran around with the photographer and we interviewed these people. I was amazed on how, I don't want to say dumb because that's super judgmental, but how single focused they were on this one thing. And they really did not know. They did not know about anything else.
Wow.
That's the thing. It's the training, it's the physical, the nutrition, the recovery, the getting ready, the routine, the sleep, that whatever goes in, that they know that. Other than that,
Wow, nothing else mattered. Wow.
Nothing else matters.
That's wild.
I want to try to sum up some of the things we talked about in a statement and see if both of you agree with it. So, at your current definition of success comes with a price tag. If that price is too high, then you need to change your definition of success.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I agree.
Maybe that'll be the book club tagline.
Yeah.
Yeah, definition of success.
Oh, goodness.
I love that.
Well, we got or that hour flew by.
Wow.
We want to be respectful of your time and whatnot, but we had a I mean, we started a book club. We talked about an awesome quiz on how to turn your passion into your profits. What else do you want to? Where can people find you? What's current on your on your list of where you want people to go and contact you?
Yeah, I
Take it
mean,
out-
the
take
most
it away.
important, the most important thing really is that, check out the quiz, figure out your number, and then really sit on that and sit with it and think about what that means for you. All of our jobs is to help your audience to come to a decision point, an inflection point, where you decide on whether this is good enough or this was good enough. And now it's time for something else. And you can find me as the growth architect or Beate Chelette all over social media. Facebook has been hacked and deleted all my accounts, so that's
fun.
that's fun, yeah. And you can't get a hold of anybody, and they really truly don't care. They didn't feel like that when I ran ads, though. They took the money, but you can't even get a hold of anybody. But that's a totally different story. So maybe other areas, LinkedIn, TikTok, find me and check out. And if you've heard something today where you go, I need to speak to her, go to uncoverysession.com and fill out an uncovery session, and make sure you mention this show, and then we get you priority treatment and have you talk to someone on my team or possibly myself and talk about what's going on in your life. And if we can help you, we'll tell you. If we can't help you, we'll tell you. And if there's someone else that can help you, we'll tell you too. I mean, we're here to help, people to success and prosperity on their own terms. And while we're at it, will you please do our two hosts the favor, wherever you pick up this show, go there now, give them a 5-star review, subscribe, and share this episode with one other person. And comment. Comments are so important because with AI ruling all the algorithms, AI looks at what is engagement. And the engagement means that this is content that's relevant. And with that, they'll be able to reach more people. So if you could do that now, I'd be greatly appreciative.
Thank you. Love that, Beate. And thank you so much for your time and conversation. Look forward to sharing this with you and hearing all those comments from listeners and new people to the book club as well.
Oh, and join the book club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget.